Flesh and Blood has always had an interesting dichotomy of sorts when it comes to card prices. We obviously want our cards to retain value. If we buy a card for $10, we would like it to be approximately $10 or even appreciate maybe. But on the other hand, when cards get way too expensive, it makes it not only hard for us to obtain them with which to play the game, but it also threatens to chase away new players who would be looking at the game, right, from a starting point. But one thing I've always been a little uncertain on is, from a community standpoint, where is the break point on which we should trigger a reprint? $10, $20, $40, $80? And of course, Majestics, Legendaries, it would all change within that range. So here today to hopefully help me answer the question is Sloopdoop. So we'll talk a bit about this, and then, let's be honest, in true Sloop and me fashion, we're going to lose track of it and talk about some really fun stuff at the end of the cast. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my Flesh and Blood friends. Welcome back to the channel, and Sloopdoop, welcome back to the channel. How are you doing, Wesley?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing all right. Thanks for, well, I guess I'm the one who got up early today, but thanks for meeting me here on a Saturday to talk
Absolutely.
reprints or the lack thereof or how it may be. So why I asked you on is I watch your stuff whenever it comes out, and you recently had a video about, I think it was top 5 reprints that you wanted to see. And in the past, you've also talked about the importance of cards holding value within the game. And I wanted to just pick your brain as someone who is familiar with a lot of other games, just played other games. How do you think, however it may be, where's the break point for when a reprint should happen? All right, I think many of us can agree, like some of the staples like Shelter the Storm, Command and Conquer should see a reprint, almost unquestionably. $5, $6 cards, do they need a reprint, even if they're staples? Where is that break point? So I'll kind of turn it over to you for thoughts.
Yeah, I think it really is a complicated thing, and obviously I don't have all the data and metrics that maybe LSS does, or big collectors, or somebody like Hemal Patel who like opens up thousands of boxes and can kind of see your pull rates and where the value and what the money cards are. I think I remember somebody had done a poll or asked people a long time ago, and they said most people feel like, you know, the generic staple Majestic shouldn't be more than like $30, $40. And I think in that range, $30 to like $50 is probably a fair range. Like if your playset of CNCs to buy in, which is like a card you don't need to buy as your first thing, but if you want to play a full tune deck, then you're going to want them. But if they were 50 a piece and it was 150 for your playset instead of 300 for your playset, you know, it's still, my thing is when I talk about cards retaining value, you need to have incentive for stores to open up boxes. They need to be able to make a profit on the cards. You need an incentive for players to buy the boxes, and LSS have been leaning into the more collector side where they're doing marvels and full arts and all that stuff, which is great, but we're not Pokemon or One Piece where people go crazy for collecting like the you know, super rare Luffy or the super rare Charizard or something, right? So we have to admit that this is a player-driven game. Most cards that have value are playable cards, right? The high-end versions of those cards will be played, but if the card's not seeing play, nobody cares. Look at a card like Deathmatcher, like nobody cares about that card whatsoever, and it's like very cheap because nobody plays it, right? And I think that it is a fine balance point. I think Codex of Frailty is a perfect example of a really good reprint where they almost slash the price in half, but it's still a $40 card. It's still a really good thing to pull. Stores can still make their money out of it. Yeah, so actually it's even, there we go, $35. And I'm just going to say a card that only goes in 2 classes should never have been $80 to $100. Like that was absurd for a card to get into just 2 classes. So this price, again, you're still not unhappy to see it. A store can still make money. You pull it in the back of a pack, you're like, oh, sweet, like I pulled a Codex of Frailty. But it's not, when you're getting into one of those classes, you're not like, oh my God, I need like $270 to $300 just to buy, you know, 3 cards that and let's be real, you kind of, if you want to play Assassin or Ranger and actually have like a good deck, Codex is one of those cards that's like actually necessary because it's literally one of their most powerful pieces, especially Assassins, because a lot of what Assassins do is honestly kind of below rate. Like they have a lot of 0 for 3s instead of 0 for 4s, but it's in using reactions and on hits and things like Codex of Frailty that let them break that parity and gain those advantages. You know, you'll find in Assassins, you'll have like some middling turns, and then it's like, boom, here's this big turn using a Codex or a Bonds and take up the mantle. So if you want to get in, Codex is necessary. You could argue things like CNC and Shelter, you don't need them. I still would like to see them reprinted. Like, I think CNC was, its reprint brought it down, what, like $10, $15, maybe 20, but it's still, now it's back to the price that it basically, okay, yeah, 75. That's actually not too bad for the history pack. That's better than it was, but I wouldn't mind seeing CNC, at least like the cheapest version, be $50. I think that'd be way better to, because whether we like to admit it or not, I think most people have the same experience where when you're trying to tell people about Flesh and Blood, everybody, their first thing, that game is, it's just too expensive. Not many people have the expendable income anymore. And when a deck is like $1,000, it's just, most people are like, I'm not even going to bother. They just won't even try it because that's just really off-putting. And I think if you could, I'm not saying tank the prices, but if like competitive decks were, let's say, like 800 because some of the staples came down, it's still a bit more appealing. And like, okay, it's not as bad as it was.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's that sticker shock, right? As you and I were talking in the preamble. If you've been in the game for a long time and you've got all the stuff, then it's really not that expensive in the grand scheme of things to keep plodding along. But if you're trying to jump in and you see the champions, last calling champion Everton Herndon's deck was a $1,400 deck, right? The Gravy Bones deck, right? That's a lot. That's a lot to look at and be like, oh, I don't belong here, right? Or as it may be. So
yeah, and like one of the reasons I do budget content, like Gravy was one of the ones I did, and I made the deck was like $120, and I'm gonna be honest, it was actually a really good deck. I was very impressed with it. I had a lot of fun playing it. So I think there is something of just kind of a lack of, like in Flesh and Blood, people think you have to have the top deck to actually win, and it's like you can actually build some pretty strong stuff with the budget concessions, mostly because the game is expanded enough that, well, also Gravy is like a really broken hero, but mostly because the game is expanded enough where there's enough like common and rare replacements for cards that aren't the full thing, but it's somewhat there. I guess like to tease it, before you hit me up, I'm working on a budget Acilio deck, and instead of playing Mind Warps, I'm just playing like the yellow Etchings of Arcana, which is not disruption, but it still is 2 arcane for 0, and it can get you back a sigil, so it still has utility, and it's as a replacement, it's not, if the Mind Warp is the 10 out of 10 card for that slot, Etchings of Arcana is still like a 7 out of 10, and you're still getting good value out of it. You can still win games, and then make those purchases after, and so I do think there's like a lack of Flesh and Blood of Armory decks do an okay job. I'd really like to see an Armory deck or maybe Armory Origins decks be like really juiced, like really tuned to the gills, where you buy that deck and you're just like good to go. You can still upgrade it with the really expensive stuff, but it's like really good out of the box. Because it would be nice to just have something where it's just an easy start to the game. You buy it once and you're just good to go. You start playing, more than maybe even budget decks can do. And this is all in LSS's hands, right? They're the ones who developed the decks. Jarl, I feel like they were afraid to make Ice really good again. But I'd like to see the next Origins decks just be like, just stupid good out of the box. I think that'd be really helpful to getting people into the game. Being like, you just buy that, you're good to go.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so why don't you just kind of off the top of your head name some of the cards that you'd like to see reprinted the most? Obviously, CNC we've already talked about. I imagine the next one, Shelter, is certainly up there.
Shelter.
What else would you like to see?
I guess for like big staples, I mean, I know I said like E-Strike would be a really good one, Balance of Justice, Crown of Dominion. Like there's some of these legendaries that are generic where it's like a reprint, a non-foil reprint would be, I think, healthy. I don't think it definitely needs it right now, but Tunic is definitely give it maybe another 6 to 8 months, unless they keep like expanding heroes that don't need it. Like Gravy Bones, for instance, does not play Tunic. If you have one, you can run it instead of Dead Threads, but Dead Threads is just better. Because I believe Tunic, I know it was in Bright Lights, and funnily enough, I remember people complaining about when it was in Bright Lights, it was reprinted. But as you'll see, I'm gonna let you pull it up here.
That's 145. Oh, that's the Krunic is 145. Wow.
Krunic. And there's the Bright Lights, about 140. That thing dropped to like $70. And I remember people complaining about the reprint, saying it was horrible, it was awful. The thing about reprints that I have found is what they do is, as the game's growing, if LSS does it reasonably, where they don't like overprint, which I think they're being careful to do. CNC was one where I think they could have a little bit more copies. Codex, I think, was perfectly fine. But what reprints really do is they drop the price and they open up a window of opportunity. But you give it enough time, you give it that 6, 8, 12 months, maybe, 14, 16 months, whatever, year and a half. and the card will just, as the game grows, it'll creep back up in price and it'll go back to where it was. Magic was like this for the longest time, where they'd create like Ultimate Masters, and cards that were in it would drop by like 20, 30, $40. But over the next 6, 8, 12 months, the card would creep back up close to the price that it was before. Maybe like $10 cheaper, but like Tarmogoyf was a really good example until it got power crept out of Modern. The card would get reprinted, it would drop to like 1 to 150, and then within like a year, it was back to $200 because the demand just kept going up. But it opens up that window of opportunity saying, hey, you're into the game right now or you want to get in. Like right now, Codex. I mean, give it another year, and if there's a new Assassin, new Ranger, Codex is going to be back to like a $70, $80 card for the copies because the demand's just going to keep going up. It's your necessary 3 of. The supply of the last several sets have been really poor. Like we just don't have enough to go around. So that's, it's going to dry up again. So yeah, I guess if other ones that I would like to see, I mean, there are some class stuff, like I wouldn't mind seeing Swing Big. One of the reasons I didn't include it in my last video, though, is because they're making it I think it's going to be the top 4 rainbow foil promo for ProQuest, it looks like, because they have the cold foil with it. So that's what I'm assuming, it's that top 4 rainbow foil. But Swing Big is a pricey card.
It's only 23.
Actually, that's gone down, but think about what's happening if brutes are juiced in Super Slam, like apparently they're going to be. If they get, like, Mansan, I saw his a post on Twitter saying he was going to do another stop motion animation for an even better card, and he did Apex Bonebreaker last time. So, I don't want to know what he's got, but I'm kind of hoping the brute cards go up a little bit so I can sell mine, cash out on them a little bit. But it's the thing is anytime something gets popular, a lot of the old cards spike, and there are, you could argue there's still boxes of Everfest floating around, but like, who's opening them, even if there are any floating around? Plus, I think it is drying up. I think a lot of the old sets are finally drying up. There's probably stores that still have some, but I think most stores are, they're probably out of most of their Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising and Crucible. I mean, Cru's been gone for quite a while. So, adding in new injections for the game would be good. But one other thing that's not cards that I would like to see reprinted big time is some of the old Armory decks. I think that's... because that would also include the cards that are in them, like Savage Sash, which I think I put Savage Sash in my video, and I said, if it's not in Super Slam, like, come back to this video, call me an idiot. And then, like, not even a week later, like, we're making a Rhinar Armory deck. I'm like, that's where it's going to be.
Oh,
like,
you think?
Where else would you do it? Well, if you think about it, like, it's the perfect brute card, right? Just non-foil in that deck, and there you go. Here's your new copies of Savage Sash. You just get it with the deck. Like, I think it's a perfect include for any brute, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to go too off topic on the Armory decks. I am floored that the Armory decks are so hard to find. Like, I don't get it. Like the Ira deck, I don't know if you saw my Ira deck video, but I was like, what Ira needs to be successful is to just be on shelves. And
yeah, it's a good deck. It's a great solid package that comes in it. Like, you've got your CNC light card with Enact Vengeance. It honestly, like,
great deck.
That one and the Aurora deck and the Gravy Bones deck. I feel like the last several Armory decks have been really good, except for Max. That one was unfortunate, but I feel like, yeah, it is really supply. That's like a lot of people's biggest issue with those is the supply. But then that also kind of ties into reprints, because like the deck exclusive cards, if you can't get the decks anymore, and those cards end up being playable over time, like look at Savage Sash. I believe Savage Sash is like a 35, 40. It's like the price of the Armory deck on its own. And for somebody who owns it, that's good if you don't want it anymore. Yeah, it's actually, yeah. And this is what I mean, where it's like, if you're not going to reprint the decks themselves, then we need reprints of the cards that come in them for sure. Except for like the Strength Rules all from the Kayo deck. Like, who cares? It's not that good of a card. But like Run Roughshod's not too bad. Obviously, Sash is a really good card that you want reprints of. So,
yeah, interesting. Yeah, actually, I haven't looked at Hunter's Clave lately.
I actually sold 2 of the promos to a buddy.
Because it's when it was reprinted in the gem pack, I was wondering what would happen to the price. Yeah, and I mean, Hunter's Clave is like, that's a card that they gave a reprint and it still needs reprinted again. Like that card, man. Yeah,
especially because it's a weapon and how popular assassins are. Like, to be fair to LSS, I mean, they're obviously, the fact that they put it in gem packs, they are trying to rectify things. And I wouldn't be surprised if even they look at their game and go like, yeah, we wouldn't mind. We got to be careful. You can't reprint everything at once, because that crash of the market will just kill so many people's desire to play. Like, so many people would be upset that they slash the price of a lot of stuff. But if you hit like a few pieces at a time, And then it's like that slow burn of like, we're just going to slowly make the, because it's like, as somebody who owns the game, I want my cards to retain some value. Obviously, it's nice when you try to, like I said, I have a bunch of brute stuff, but I'm not a huge brute player. And if the cards go up, I might sell them to get some money back to put into like the next deck that I actually want to build. Like if there's a new Necromancer or something, right? And that's kind of the value of playing TCGs, where value goes either up with what becomes playable. I mean, how many times have you had random cards sitting in your binder, a new class or new hero comes out, that card shoots up in price, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll trade this or sell it for something else that I want, right? You just suddenly your card's worth like 25
Poison
bucks.
Poison the Well, right? Yeah. For a while. Call to the Grave for a while was like $60 card. Dude.
I think I traded and or sold like 4 extra copies, because I bought 3 of the extended arts, and then I got one with the gravy deck, and then I ended up getting I had 3 copies already, like non-foil. So I was like, okay, perfect. Like now that these are $40, allow me to start, I sold them for less. I think I gave them to my friends for like 25 a piece, because they were like 40 Canadian. So I was like, whatever, I'll sell you it cheaper. I'm still getting a little bit out of it. You're getting a little bit of a deal. But yeah, it's I mean, this is the thing, like Magic is the same way. When there's new commander decks that come out, and suddenly old cards that were just like $1 suddenly shoot to like $30-$40 because they're super old, and now they're suddenly a high demand card. Now you only need 1 for commander, but that's kind of the same as Flesh and Blood. Like when something comes out and players want to play it, cards shoot up in price, and when the new popular stuff becomes really inaccessible because it's now over $1,000 or $1,200 for a deck, it really does kind of hurt people's ability to even want to play the game. I bought the Rhinar Armory deck, but brute stuff cost me like $1,200 to get all the high-end stuff, and it's kind of rough.
Sure. Okay, so in terms of that break point, I mean, I'm not expecting there to be a hard and fast line of like $25 triggers a reprint. That's not what I'm after here, right? But if we were to name stuff that I'd like to see reprinted, fundamentally I'd like to see E-Strike reprinted, right? But it's only a $30 card. So like, where do you fall on this one?
I think E-Strike could be like $15 and would be really good. Still about 2.5, 3 times the price of a pack. And it's one of those Majestics that, like, I'm going to be honest, I know people say, oh, E-Strike isn't a top tier card anymore, but E-Strike is just one of those cards that's so easy to slot into a deck. Like, you buy the new Ira Armory deck if you can find it. E-Strikes. Oh, I pulled a couple E-Strikes in this thing. Let me put them in, and now I have this powerful, 2 for 7 or 0 for 5 go again, or draw a card if you want. Like you've got all the abilities. It's one of those Majestics that it's gotten weaker over the years, but there are decks that still want to run it, and it's one of those ones that's also kind of hard to replace. Like CNC at least has a bunch of CNC light cards, but there's really nothing, because E-Strike is modal, so there's nothing that really does exactly what it does. You can basically replace like one of the options, like Snatch to replace the draw, Scar for Scar to replace the go again, and maybe I don't know, like Battlefront Bastion as like a 2-card 7, pitch a blue, send the 7, something like that. But I think it's one of those Majestics. Like, I don't know. I think having some generic staples that are also cheap would actually be healthier for the game, because then you say, oh, well, you can start with the cheaper ones, upgrade your decks, and then move into the more expensive ones. Having kind of like that tier system of card demand.
Yeah. That's an interesting point you bring up, actually, about, E-Strike being 30. I'm not doing a good job here, but basically what you're saying is, like, because Command and Conquer has legitimate backfills like Wreck Havoc or just, go down the line, it being 80 isn't necessarily as impactful to someone entering the game as E-Strike. That's a really interesting take on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, even LSS have also, I mean, the Kayo deck had the Strength Rules All, which was like a CNC light card. I think the best example is the Ira deck having the Enact Vengeance, which is like actually a pretty good replacement for CNC. So if you're playing Ira and you're playing the Edge of Autumn, you don't actually need, like, yeah, sure, people would be like, oh, well, CNC is still technically better, but it's like you literally are like, Enact Vengeance in that deck is already at a 9. You don't need to go and drop $300 to go to the 10 right away. Like, you're fine playing the 9 version of the card, Right.
Why not both?
That's what a lot of people do. But at least, like, this is I do appreciate that LSS. It's the same with Tunic. Like, they keep making new chess pieces. I mean, you want to play Savage Sash over Tunic in a Brute deck. You want to play Dead Threads over Tunic in Gravy, or any Necromancer, really. Let's be real. That card is broken. A lot of Ninja decks now aren't even playing Tunic. They're playing, Blood Spattered Vest.
Ugh.
That's, I mean, hey, $45 for a legendary is actually not the worst.
Yeah, no, I saw that first and I reacted, but
yeah.
Actually, Blood Splattered Vest is a good one.
I actually think Dead Thread should have been like Blood Splattered Vest, where it's like a 3-time thing. You get your 3 times to use it, and then it's done. Because using it like 8 times in a game is so gross.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Blood Splattered Vest is busted in Blitz, man. Busted in Blitz.
Oh, in Blitz, absolutely, yeah. Because the game's over by the time you've gotten your 3 resources. Like if you use it 3 times, you've won.
Yeah, and you can do it all in the same turn if you want. Like, anyway. But I digress. All right, Clave we did. How about Codex we did? Flick Knives.
That's a very good option. I regret selling mine when they were like $25 for the longest time because it was not playable up until Hunted. This I could definitely see. Like again, it is really when you have legendaries that they're not even generic and they're more expensive than some generic equipment. That is an issue. Now they are dual class, which I find dual class, like obviously that's going to be because I believe it's ninjas and assassins.
It
correct?
Is, yeah.
It is, yeah. So it's one of those cards. I think it's also, I mean, those are both very popular classes right now. Syndra's very popular, Ira's reasonably popular, and there are still decks running Flick Knives if they want. Obviously, Slippy is probably the biggest one in Marionette. It's one of those cards too that's like it's necessary for a deck to function. Like you can play Danger Digits, but it's a one-time effect, and there's a big difference between every turn and one-time effect, so I could definitely think this is a card that needs a reprint. Like seeing that at like $60-$70 for a non-foil would be actually pretty sick, because then it's you're playing Assassin, just get the non-foil version, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm not super happy that this wasn't reprinted in the Hunted, because it is like Syndra does not work without this card, right? So yeah,
you're basically playing Phi Syndra if you don't have Flick Knives. You get your one-time Danger Digits for and then you have to play like some of the, what is it? It's like Silver Fang or whatever. It's the one that if you make it Draconic at the end of the chain, you flick a dagger. But yeah, like the fact that you need to flick them in order to return your daggers from graveyard. You're kind of locked out of that deck unless you want to spend $115 on one legendary.
Yep. All right.
And I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say about the Flick Knives, that kind of goes to my point about when new demand for a card goes, like there is a bit of like almost predicting that LSS has to do. Like if Brutes become really good, Swing Big, if it's not reprinted in the set, is going to go up to like a $50 card because it's an older card. Yes, there's a lot of copies, but any new player wanting to get it, all of the copies are going to get swallowed up. And then if Brutes are really, I think it was in a dev talk, maybe I'm misremembering, but I could have sworn they were like, oh, Brutes are getting juice this set. Like they're going to be really good. And if they are, we're going to see what we see with Flick Knives, where old cards are just going to skyrocket in price because now there's a much more demand. Because Brutes, like, they're not really doing anything right now. Nobody's really playing them at all except for just for fun. So no demands on them. And their cards are still like Swing Big's still a $23 card, despite the fact that the class is like not top of the meta, even close to top of the meta right now. And that's where you saw with Flick Knives, $25 card for the longest time. Suddenly Hunted comes out, shoots up. Now it's like 5 times the price.
Yeah, I mean, but Swing Big is not necessary to play, whereas, like, again, Flick Knives, like, you can't play 2/3 of the Hunted without a Flick Knives, which...
That's fair.
Yeah, so, anyway. All right, so, interesting one, Blood Rush Bellow. It's only a $6 card. I'd argue this should be reprinted. But yet, it's only a $6 card. I'd argue it should.
I mean, I guess one thing that kind of stops me is looking at the listings where you see 42 and 77. It seems like there's a lot of copies to go around. But I will say, if you're, especially like, let's say in the Rhinar deck itself, if they put like 1 to 3, honestly, I think they should just put 3 copies of it. Like it's I'm going to say it. I think some Majestics and some cards, this is what I also think of like Sink Below. Some things should just be cheap. Like you should have cheap alternatives or cheap power pieces that allow people to get into the game. If you're going to have like expensive staples like CNC that are these generic power bomb cards, but they're not the card that makes the deck work. You're okay to replace that, but what do you replace Blood Rush Bellow with? There's really nothing else that you can run in its place for the power. So I agree with you. I think the Rhinar deck should just have 3 of them.
All right, another one very near and dear to my heart, Glint the Quicksilver. Every warrior plays this card.
That's true, and it's one of those cards that sometimes dries up if Fang becomes more popular, or if they make a new warrior, it's one that's going to skyrocket because like it's a blue block 3 that draws you a card and gives go again. That thing is like really, really good. I think similar to Rhinar, if they're going to make a warrior, either a set or if they make a warrior armory deck, they should reprint this as well as Glistening Steelblade. if they do Dorinthea especially.
Oh, yeah. You're talking the one that puts permanent counters on.
Yeah. Because that card is, that's a great example of something they don't do anymore with the Armory decks, where Armory decks, all new cards come as full play sets, and they better not ever change that, because Glistening Steelblade was just awful. $50 Blitz decks. Okay, yeah, because now it's gone way down, but still, the fact that you can only get it in these decks, if Dorinthea was actually good, this thing would still be like $30, $40. And again, if they make an Armory deck, because I could totally see Armory deck Dorinthea with like a new version of her, if they wanted to make one. And then that way, because if they make Dorinthea strong, she's got enough LL points, and she would just, rush through the system. So if they made a new version, Glistening Steelblade, Quicksilver, some new cards, and then I could see a new Dorinthea being in an Armory deck, honestly. Because she's like, I know she's not as beloved anymore as the game's gone on, but she was like the hero back in the day.
But still my hero. I'm actually playing the snot out of her right now because she eats gravy alive. So
That's fair.
Yeah. So I actually would love to see adult Quicksilver Prodigy as an Armory deck. That would be like my dream. But
actually, that'd be really cool. Yeah, Dawnblade Resplendent's actually not a terrible card. You don't lose the counters, so if you get them on there with Glistening Steelblade, boom, they're just there forever.
Yep. All right, next one, Felling.
Absolutely. Okay, this one's interesting because like I feel like one of the issues with all of like even Gone in a Flash, which is only playable in one deck, still is, I think it's like a $15 card or whatever. I feel like Rosetta's biggest issue is that the product dried up and nobody can get anymore. Like our stores here can't get anymore. I think there was some for a little bit, but distributors were like, it's going to be like twice the price for stores to get it because there's not much left, even though they shouldn't be doing that. They do. So my LGS was like, nobody's going to buy boxes for twice the price, like, right? But Felling is a travesty because there's only 3 decks that play it, and they're not even. It's not even like any of them are like that good right now, right? Like Florian, Verdance, and Jarl. It's not that you can't play them, but they don't really beat Gravy Bones that reliably. They're not really top of the meta, but the card is still extremely expensive. And now I think it's also because Earth heroes are very popular. Like it's just a fun, I know people are like, some people say Earth is boring. I think Earth is super cool. I love the art. That new I know you had messaged me about it, that new Verdance Burn Bear, the one that can also discard it in another Earth to stop R6 Arcane. It's such a good card, but it's such a beautiful card. Like I love the art on all the Earth cards. It's one of the reasons I like to play Florian, is the art really draws me in. I love the beautiful nature, everything, trees, plants, all that stuff. So but Felling is, I mean, it's the Earth card. Right. It is Felling is just one of the single most powerful cards in the game, I think. Like, as just an individual card, I think it's better than CNC, like, in an Earth deck where it goes. Because CNC is like, 6, disrupt your arsenal. Felling is like, no matter what you do, you're losing a card, and there's 8 going at you, and I just advanced my own game plan.
Yep. So Felling, yes, reprint?
I think yes. Yeah. Will we see it soon? Maybe not. Rosetta might be too soon because since they plan stuff ahead, they probably want at least a year to a year and a half buffer before they start even considering reprints. But the issue that we're having is, like I said, the product just dried up. I think they cut their print runs, and then the game saw huge growth, and then it was like, oh crap, now we don't have enough to go around.
All right, and just because it's here and we're right here, Crown of Providence.
We did get Crown of Poverty. I'm actually curious. Do you mind just searching that card up so we can see the
Crown of Providence?
Yeah, because I think there's the non-foil printing too that came out in, what was it? Dusk Till Dawn. I'm just curious about what that price is because it might be a bit lower. Oh, it's literally more expensive.
Why? That's interesting.
Probably because Dusk Till Dawn, nobody opened it, and then so there's less going around. And it was a limited print run because of the art print cards. They did a limited print run, whereas Uprising, I think Uprising was printed to, like, there was a lot of Uprising because it was the first 2.0 set. Everybody was, going after it. So, yeah, Crown of Providence. I'm assuming the 130 is for the rainbow foil, the 230 is for the cold foil. That would make a lot of sense for that price difference there. Yeah, I mean, if it's $130, yeah, I think a lot of the headpieces could be reprinted. Where they'll be reprinted, see, that's the issue too, is like there's so many cards that I feel like could use a reprint, especially legendaries, but it's like, where do you put them in? And you can't do, in Bright Lights, they did both Tekla Foundry Heart and Tunic. it didn't go over great. I mean, Techno Foundry Heart's now a dirt cheap legendary, which if you're getting into the class is cool. If you bought one when they were expensive, it feels pretty bad because your card literally went from like used to be $150, now it's like 30. You know. But yeah, I could see Crown of Providence needing a reprint again, especially when they're generic. Generics are like so many people want to play them. It's just good to have more accessible versions.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting, right? Like we should be. I mean, even just from like a statistics point of the pull rates, we should expect legendaries to be significantly more expensive, right? I mean, but they're not always, right? Because to your point, it's about playability. Yeah, I don't know. I mean. Because I was in the game in WTR and like $80 was kind of like the going rate for a legendary, right? Kind of like back in the day. And that as always, I guess, just kind of set my baseline of like, a good legendary should be like 80-ish.
That actually, you just reminded me of something. So one of the things about card prices, it's partly our own fault. So as you said, when I got into the game, this was after like the big boom of investment into card games and that. So legendaries were like 150 to 250. Like I remember Skullcap reached almost, I think for a period, it was almost $300 for a copy. Like it was 300 Canadian. It was like 250 or 260 70 American. Like it was a crazy price. Now the card isn't even like nobody plays it because there's just better options. Still, like it's still not a bad card, but it's like why would you run it over Crown of Providence or Balance of Justice, which Balance is the one I think will get reprinted in Super Slam just because they've already reprinted the other two generic like 2-block helms, and Balance of Justice came in heavy hitters, so I could see it as a non-foil in Super Slam, right? I could see them just doing the same as they did with the others. But one of the things about prices is we have what's known as price memory. When Shelter from the Storm came out, everybody immediately was like, this is going to be as expensive as CNC. They just took the price memory of CNC and immediately applied this will be $80 to $100. And lo and behold, right away, the card shot up to that price. If we had all said, oh, the card will be $50, and nobody was willing to spend 80, they were only willing to spend 50, sellers would not be able to sell them for $80. The reason they sell for $80 is because we all expect that price and we're willing to pay it. If nobody was willing, the price, because when cards don't sell over time, sellers have to lower their prices and find that price point that people are willing to pay. So I think it's partly the player base. We just go generic Majestic, they're always this expensive. Like Fearless Confrontation. I think I actually got my first copy here. So Fearless Confrontation. When this came out, it was like $70. Now it's only about $15 because people found their senses and were like, okay, yeah, this is not like, but it was going for $70 when the set first came out because everybody was like, oh, all Gravy players need 3. Everybody needs them. It's the new generic staple. Thankfully, people found their senses and realized like even in Gravy, it's like it's fine, but it's not like I don't even care to run it personally. Like you can, but it's not like it's totally game breaking or anything. But we have this like price memory as players in stores. Like people are like expecting an $80 card. Why wouldn't you sell it for $80? If people are going to buy it for that much, that's your box price. Like why,
Right. Yeah. I mean, we do need to keep in mind, right, that like as a luxury hobby, we don't have a traditional market, right? Like I shouldn't say we don't have a traditional supply demand curve in this game. Right, because people honestly, I should say some people honestly don't care how much things cost. And
no, they have extra money, they just throw it at the game. And there are people that want they want cards to be more expensive. They want the game to be more inaccessible because then it holds their value. I've seen, I listen, maybe they'll get me in trouble, but I've actually seen, I used to hear collectors cry about, they'd say, oh, the Timmies are crying because cards are too expensive. They can't afford stuff. Oh, they want everything to be dirt cheap. And like, sure, I don't agree with that either. I don't like people when they say no card should be more than $5. That's just like a ludicrous statement. It's like the game would literally die if they had no value. Like that just doesn't work. Maybe for Pokemon, if they have the super hyper rare, nobody's doing that for Flesh and Blood. Like most people are just buying cards to play. It would kill the game. But on the flip side, I saw when Codex was reprinted, I saw people just complaining like, oh my God, I can't believe they're reprinting cards. Like you're hurting like collector confidence. And it's like, why are you collecting normal copies of Codex of Frailty? LSS have been very clear that cold foils and now rainbow foils in sets, they won't be reprinted, but the normal versions absolutely are open to reprints. Like I don't understand why you're upset about that. And I think most players, like, I don't know. I actually think the sentiment has shifted a lot where I think an overwhelming majority of people actually would love more reprints, just more accessibility of cards. You know, like going back to E-Strike, if it's $15, I'm getting a second play set so I can put it in more decks than just one. Because I like to have a few decks going, and I have an Ira deck that I'd love to put them in, but they're in my Florian right now.
Yeah, I don't. It's a tough one, right? And again, like you said, we have to be careful not to get in trouble, right? But you know, I was watching another creator. This was a couple months ago, and they were sitting and talking about they were basically having a cast on like cards need to retain value and everyone needs to man up, right? Was essentially their cast. And the individual sitting there was holding up 3 copies of old CNC, 3 copies of new CNC, right? So like in their hand, they had 6 copies of CNC, right? And they're telling the screen that cards need to retain value. And I'm like, you're not even having the same conversation as like the two sides are not even having the same conversation, right? Because to your point, if someone wants like having every card be $5 is obviously ridiculous when the MSRP of a single pack is $5, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, like you can't just say, well, everything has to retain value. It's like you're holding, I mean, what is that? Like just shy of $500 in your hand. Like you're not having the same conversation, right?
Yeah, and like the thing is, you just have to deal with the reality of the world. It is a luxury hobby, but I don't know about your economy and down there in America, but Canada's is absolutely gutted. Most people don't have even $500 in 3 months to spend on like luxury hobbies. This is why people are going to cheaper games. And again, I'm not saying LSS needs to reprint everything. It needs to be dirt cheap. Everything needs to be super hyper accessible. I'm a big component of one of the things I like that they're doing is that every time they make an armory deck, it's like, here's a bunch of new Majestic equipment or rare equipment for the Ira deck and like new Majestics that replace some of the older ones. So you can get a strategy where you can get like most of the way there without having to spend like a ton of money. You know, like even I think the Ira deck's equipment that it comes with is all like really solid. Like you could get away with just running that and you're fine. You know, every time I play the armory decks or even budget decks, I've kind of realized over time it's like you actually get a lot of power in a lot of these like budget options. You're not maybe getting all the way there, but it's not as bad. Like people act like you cannot win a single game without all the best cards. And it's just like I've learned firsthand that that's not exactly true. Especially if you go into like a good matchup, if you're playing a budget deck, but it's a good like a budget Syndra that's like $100 into gravy, or maybe 200, maybe you bought your flick knives, then you budgeted out the rest of the deck. You're probably going to still be beating gravy, even if it's like a tuned gravy, unless they high roll you. But yeah, it's definitely I don't know, man. It's a tight line, and I think LSS is trying to be careful to not tank their value because they experienced that once, and I wouldn't be surprised to find that they're like terrified to tank their value again and have a repeat of Tails and Everfest. But it has now gone the other way where, you know, back in the day, I used to make the argument like Fab's not that expensive. It's just the few staple generics that you need. That's the expense and everything else is cheap. You can't really say that anymore. Now everything just is kind of expensive, which shows some success in the game. I mean, there's a lot of demand for it, but trying to get new people in is brutal because, you know, again, like you said, that sticker shock, they look at decks being over $1,000 and they're like, man, I'm playing One Piece and most decks are like cap out at like 250 to 300, you know? And so it's like when you're looking at games to play, like I'll say Flesh and Blood is a much better game, just wholesale, like it's the best game out there. But it's really hard when you're a new player and you're like, well, what do I want to spend my time and money on, you know? Especially if you're not like a hyper competitive going to tournaments and competing type player.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in terms of trying to onboard. Last one I wanted to ping you on is Saber Bloodshed. This one's an interesting one. Okay. You think it's okay?
I think it's very recent, and I don't mind if some Majestics have like some value. I think that it is because the other thing too, to be clear, like it is nice when you're looking at your hand, you'd be like, oh man, these are like $20. Maybe I pulled a couple, and that's like really cool that you pulled them. You only had to get one copy or whatever. I don't think having, again, my thing is like when you have cards like this, but then you also need shelter, and then you also need CNCs, and then you need your flick knives, and then you need like when you add all of it together. But having a couple Majestics, especially if they're just for that deck, and it's like, okay, like I'm shelling this out, but well, it's also, I think it's dual class too, isn't it? I think it's warrior and
it's assassin warrior, yeah.
Yeah. Assassin warrior, sorry, not ninja warrior. Yeah, so it's one of those cards that like has a bit more demand. This to me, this reminds me of Swing Big, where it's like right now it's okay. In a year from now, if they're making more like assassins and warriors that want to use it, probably will need a reprint because then it'll be like $40-$50 just because Hunted is no longer available. It's an older card.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, this one, while I wish I wish it was cheaper because I only have one of them. I actually think that this one is fine because there are so many backfill, like there are so many 0-4 front pump backfills, and I get it, they don't draw a card, but like I think this one, I agree with you. I think this one's fine, even though, like I said, I don't have enough and I would like more. But
I think
so
I might actually have one. I don't know if I traded it. I need to check my piles. I have a bunch of like Majestic piles lying around right now. I need to get back to sorting my cards.
Yeah, I actually have the one I have is a rainbow foil, and that's another thing that's completely off topic, but it always surprises me how in this game the rainbow foils are not more expensive than like it's. I mean, because in general it's been I think it's like a 3-to-1 ratio by and large, somewhere in that range, where like for every 3 normals you get 1 rainbow foil, but the rainbow foils are only usually like, I don't know, a 5-10% premium, maybe a little more than that. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say this is, so you know how like I'm sure you've heard the argument before where it's like, this game needs to do what Pokemon does, have the high end collectible versions and then make the regular versions dirt cheap, right? And same with One Piece. The game is very much like that. I remember I was building like a black purple Luffy deck. There's one card where a playset of 4 is like $150, but everything else is like pretty cheap. Like it's much cheaper than a Fab deck. But the thing is, the reason that doesn't work for Fab is exactly what you're saying. The rainbow foil versions, which you think would be the chase version of a card, are not much more expensive because nobody cares in this game. Everybody's after just, I want to play the strong cards for my hero. That's why like regular copies of CNC are $80, but which is more expensive than sometimes the legendaries that will come in a set, in the Hunted. I'm sure that I haven't looked at the prices for the Hunted recently, but I'm sure you could find like one of the, what is it? Actually, Blood Splatter Vest. It came in the Hunted. It's only like $50, and the CNC that came in it, to be fair, is also a legendary, but it's a card that's had multiple printings before it, is much. And the CNC, there's that EA down there, which commands way higher price, but obviously nobody's opening up the Hunted to chase the EA Command and Conquer, because the EA, as much as it looks nice, you just need the card because nobody cares as much about the shine. It's more, I just want the card to play because I want its effect in my deck.
Yeah, interesting.
So I think we're just dealing with a different dynamic of a player base here.
Yeah, a player base that has endless pockets, endless pockets, but doesn't want to overpay for things. Interesting. All right, man. Well, I don't know that we landed on an answer because I don't know that there is an answer. So what do you think the biggest? Do you think armory decks are the best way with which to inject those reprints versus sets? Is that kind of what I'm extracting from your thoughts?
For Majestics, I think both. I think doing both at the same time keeps up a healthy stream of like, because the armory decks like Gravy having 1 copy of Call to the Grave. The Ira one, the give and takes, like it's like $3. It's not really a good reprint, but having the the Red Bittering Thorns, finally putting them in a product aside from around the table, as well as even Sink Belows. Like Sink Belows, 3 copies of Sink Belows were more than the 2 copies of Give and Take. So they didn't do any like major big single reprint. I guess you could count Bittering Thorns, but like the only reason it was expensive is because it only came in 2 copies in the round the table deck, which nobody really purchased, right? But it's only a common, but still, like they kind of went wide with the reprints. But like Max having Heist, if they stop doing these single reprints, I will be very upset, because I think I think they should do them. And I think too the Origins decks, like when I think about Jarl, I think Jarl should have included like a Pulse of Eisenloft, and honestly I think a playset of Oaken Olds, or at least 1 copy of Oaken Old, just to like, hey, here's this like really powerful card for this deck, and I hope that they start doing that. Like if the Rhinar deck, maybe he has just 1 swing big, maybe that's where they do the reprint for that card, is he has a single copy. Any player who's already played Brutes, they buy the deck, they don't need it, they trade that copy to a newer player, and it's maybe hopefully a bit cheaper. I think the biggest issue is that there's not enough decks to go around. Like even when there are reprints, like Call to the Grave is still the same price from the Gravy deck. Like it's nice that you get one, but because there's no Gravy decks left out around to buy, the card can't really go down in price because like nobody can get the decks.
Yeah, and Call to the Grave was Rosetta, right? Which is also gone.
Yeah, very gone. Yeah. And I think that's another issue. Like the Rosetta, Hunted, High Seas, and it now looks like Super Slam. I think these are going to be 4 sets that like just cards in them are going to be ridiculous in the future because they're selling out. There's none really left around.
Yeah, I'm super scared about Super Slam because everyone's saying their allocation's worse than it was for high seas, and that's really concerning.
It seems like LSS was like, hey, we know it's kind of a gimmicky set. We don't want to overprint it. Like but again, and then if they're doing multiple reprints though, it's like, man, are we going to get reprints and they don't do anything because there's not enough to go around?
Well, maybe that's the happy medium, quote unquote. I don't know.
Mm.
All right, man. Well, what else you got going on?
Going on, I mean, just the same as usual, making fab content. I've got, we talked about this earlier. I've got a daughter who's going to be born in a couple months, so big life change. Very excited for that.
Yeah, that'll change things for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. But you get to join the Fab Dad Club, so congratulations on that.
I do, yes. I think that's going to be a good club. It's really nice. Like the moment that we knew that we were going to have a kid, I mean, obviously you're kind of like, oh shit, like, oh God, now everything's changing. Like so much responsibility. Oh, great. Like, because we weren't really planning it and it just kind of happened. But at the same time, it gives you a perspective of like what actually matters. You kind of realize, like, especially being a creator on the internet, you kind of realize like some of the nasty comments people make, it just like kind of brushes off you easier because you're like, I got bigger things to worry about. I can't really care about what somebody on the internet thinks of me. I got somebody to take care of now, and I'm sure that'll be amplified when she's born. Like it'll be an even bigger sentiment of like, oh, I got to get my shit in gear and get things rolling because now I got somebody to take care of and somebody bigger than myself to live for.
I like that approach. Mental approach, I should say. All right, well, what do you got? Obviously, and I think the vast majority of people know you and know where to find your stuff. But what do you got brewing in the scripts? What do you get? Any secret insight into the next loot video?
Yeah, well, I just put out an armory deck video, which I had one bad point in it that I didn't like really clarify well, so I got some flack for that. Some people, pushing back on it, which I think was fine. So if you want to see, on the price of the starter decks for One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh, people are like, oh, these are cheaper than armory decks. To be fair, here in Canada, they're actually not. Like buying 3 Yu-Gi-Oh decks is the same as an armory deck. Buying 2 One Piece decks ended up being about the same as an armory deck, but I didn't really consider US prices. But other than that, I've got, well, it's going to be a little while. I'm still working on it, but I have a budget deck that I'm working on. A fun little thing. Been very fun to play, but I also hated him because I was facing my buddy on Boltyn and I lost, I don't know, like 8-9 games in a row. I just could not beat him because like I'd get him low and he'd be like, via the Vanguard, here's 20 damage, or Lumina Ascension. I have like all instants in hands and I just take a ton. But other than that, I've got I think I'm going to do a banless prediction video, which I'm probably going to rip off today or tomorrow, and then I'm going to do a reaction. I want to review, if I can get my hands on it, I'd like to review Smash Palace. I've got, then I'm going to do the Pleiades deck. I've got, the spoiler video to make for Super Slam. And then I'm thinking in the winter, because I don't know if you noticed with your channel, did you notice like this summer was a pretty big drop off in views for after high seas?
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed it more in subscriber increase rate, which is I've been at like the same number all summer.
I literally it was like high seas was this huge growth, like tons. Like I was getting like 400 plus subscribers a month, and I was still uploading similar frequency. It's summer, like I actually upload less in the summer because my work is busier. And then all of a sudden, like 3 weeks later, it just like flatlines, and I was kind of demotivated for about a week there where I didn't do too much. I decided to focus on real life for a little bit. But after, I'm thinking it's going to pick up in the fall winter, so I think a big project I want to do, if you remember the powering down of Flesh and Blood, it was one of the big video essays, like one of the first like real high effort videos I did. I think I'm going to wait to see what happens with Super Slam, and I'm hoping it's maybe really powerful because I want to do the power creeping of Flesh and Blood, because I think in this past year or so, the game has seen, like ever since Mistvale, like Heavy Hitters was fine. It was like a little bit of a step up from Bright Lights, but nothing crazy. Ever since then, oh my goodness, every set's just been like power.
Right.
So...
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. If Mistvale hadn't happened, I don't think we would all have the power creep taste in our mouth as much as we do, right? Aurora came out and was obviously super strong, but people could have been like, okay, that was an overtuned hero, right? But I think because of what happened in Mistvale, like you look back now at Rosetta, like Rosetta's pretty baller set, right? Even even Auxilio, like your dude you were just holding up, right? Like he's pretty strong, I think.
Do you like drawing like 5 cards in a turn?
Yeah, like
yeah. Even Channel Lightning Valley, they're like, we don't want heroes drawing a bunch of cards anymore. Here's a card that does it for like multiple turns in Aurora.
Yeah.
Like at least in Auxilio, it's harder to keep around because you don't really have any pitch outlets. Like if you have a Sigil, your Volzar is free, so you can't just freely pitch a lightning card to it. So it's like I found in Auxilio, it's not as good as Aurora, but with Aurora's hero ability or the star, her weapon, you just always kept Channel Lightning Valley around for at least 2 turns. And then that with like Sigil of Suffering was like, oh my god, dude, this card is so busted. But yeah,
that's interesting actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
but yeah, so to the hero point, right? Like if you actually look at Hunted, like Hunted actually wasn't like Slippy, I guess, is the best out of that, and he wasn't even technically out of that set. I mean, he was, but that set's not crazy powerful. And then High Seas, like aside from Gravy and the fact that Gravy's, like, to be honest, like Gravy's busted, but aside from that fact, like the other 2 heroes are really just non-starters.
Yeah, so a lot, like when I did the powering down video, I remember one of the reasons I made it is because I was so tired of people saying like, oh, the game's powering down, like Sink Below and Fate Foreseen are too good for the new power level, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's not what the powering down is. So I made my video because almost out of spite, because I was like, no, I need to lay out what they're actually, like what actually is happening here, where it was like the removing of Go Again on hero abilities and like certain things. I think a lot of like with the power creeping lately, it's just been like Saber Bloodshed's a really good example where it's like, it's not only a +4, but you also draw a card. It's not like it's like so much better than everything that's come before it, but it's like a little bit better. Like they're very clearly going, okay, Assassins and Warriors need that bump up, right? So you like, and card games always have this. You need like that slow progression. Sometimes you get standout cards like say Felling of the Crown, which is just like, oh, that card's like actually just bonkers good. Like it's better than most anything that's come out before it. But yeah, between hero abilities, like Zen's ability is a really good example. I mean, obviously MST just in general was overtuned. Actually, one of my big points will be the power creeping of blues. Like blues have just gotten better, and when blues get better, the game just gets more powerful as a whole, especially when you want to play your blues. So
yeah, I mean, I think that fits right in with your Gravy point, but or with the Gravy.
I mean,
point.
I like playing Gravy. I like playing the busted deck. I don't want to face the busted deck unless it's a mirror. Actually, the Gravy mirror, I'll be honest, I find the Gravy mirror really fun, which I think is good because some mirrors for decks are miserable and I never want to play them, but Gravy's actually pretty good.
All right, man. Well, we are way off topic, but that's okay. It's been a while since a while since we've gotten to chat with each other outside of the Discord. So, all right, we'll let everybody know one more time where they can find you, and then we'll kill this.
Well, you've got my Twitter, or sorry, X, file up there. It's Sloopdoop Fab, but you can also just find me at the YouTube channel Sloopdoop, where I just every once in a while I drop a video, try to make it entertaining, and sometimes have some spicy takes that people don't like. But most of the time, I just try to entertain people, have some fun, help new players get in, do some budget content.
Hey man, that's the trick, right? The spicy wrong takes that force comments actually helps the algorithm. It's like,
oh, dude, actually, my video's doing like, yeah, some people are mad at me, but man, the video is doing really well.
Got to tell Sloopdoop why he's wrong. Hey, whatever. Whatever, dude.
I mean, sometimes I am. To be fair, the people making points, it's like, actually, yeah, you guys have a good point. It's just something I didn't really consider while making the video, And I'm sure, as when you're making videos, like sometimes you just say something or you say it in a way that like you realize later, it's like, oh yeah, that wasn't a good way to make my point.
Right. Oh yeah,
So,
I do that all the time. I'm listening back to it and I'm like, that's not what I meant, but all right. But, I mean, you had a good point on those that I hadn't really considered, right? So in your video, you made the point that a lot of these decks have like 1 copy of the Chase, right? Whereas the Armories have 3. So like, yes, there's a $12 deck or whatever it may be, but if I have to buy 3 of them.
Yeah, my point, I think I didn't do a good job because I did say like, oh, I had to spend $25 for a second deck for 4 cards, which kind of felt bad. And people are like, oh, the decks are only $12 MSRP. And it's like, well, I can't find them for less than $25 in Canada. Sorry, they were $22.99. So I just rounded up to $25 because it's just easier, right, than saying $23. But it was, my point wasn't really supposed to be about the price. It was more the fact of like, I don't want to have to buy 2 decks and have a bunch of random crap. Like the other thing about the starter decks is like 95% of them is like garbage you just end up taking out and replacing anyways. Whereas I think Armory decks have done a pretty good job of like, even some of the commons and rares, they're actually cards that you'll keep in your final build. It's a now you just get them. So I think they do a better job at like being like a more, open the deck, get them. But yeah, my point was just like, yeah, I just don't want to have to buy multiple decks and have a bunch of random crap that it's going to end up in the garbage. Like a lot of the stuff in these decks is like actual chaff that nobody's ever going to use.
I see. Got it.
So, but yeah, it was, yeah.
All right, well, go check out the video that we're talking about right now. I'll put your thumbnail up and do the link and the whole thing. I'll do that. But
I appreciate it. Hey, I think it's a good thumbnail. That's, I think, what's doing well. I think I did a good job.
I think it was the chest hair. I think it was the chest hair.
That too. Yes, I'm hiding it today. I'm hiding my power.
All right, man. Well, let's go ahead and get out of here. Thank you again for coming and
Absolutely.
chatting with me about reprints, and we'll see you next time.
And everything else.
And everything. That's all right.
Yeah, we talked more about off topic than we did on topic.
Come for the reprints, stay for the chatter, right? That's right.
Absolutely.
All right, my
Thanks for having
friend.
me.
Well, say it with me on the way out. Go Commando.
Go Commando. I failed at that, but you know.